When the name Tan Sri Azman Mokhtar is mentioned, what immediately comes to mind is his leadership of Khazanah Nasional Berhad as Managing Director from 2004 to 2018. During his time, Khazanah established itself as among the leading sovereign funds in the region, where its net portfolio value rose 3.5 times from 33.3 to 115.6 billion ringgit. Yet it wasn't purely about portfolio growth, but the manner under which the 10-year GLC Transformation Program underlined impact and reasonable investment growth, corporate governance, human capital development, and corporate social responsibility, among others. Today, Tan Sri still keeps himself active to the point it was really a challenge securing his time for this interview. In this episode, we explore Tan Sri Azman as a person. Let's watch, listen, and learn what we didn't know about this enigmatic gentleman as he shares his perspectives on our theme, The Merdeka in Me. Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera everyone. Welcome to this latest episode of Cerita. Thank you so much for joining us. This is another occasion where we are so thrilled to have a distinguished guest with us. And you know how it is getting the time of the persons respectfully arranging to talk about a topic. So Alhamdulillah, today we have Tan Sri Azman Mokhtar as our guest. And thank you so much, Tan Sri,
thank you
for joining us.
Thank you.
I know this is meant to be post mainstream working life, but you're still so busy, with your other activities and of course even your travels. So thank you so much for making time to join us today. It's a real pleasure, sir.
Well, thank you. I think first of all, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And very good, I'm not sure, morning, afternoon, evening. It is now afternoon di Taman Tun.
Yes.
Second of all, to say thank you to Azman, Coach Azman.
Azman saja,
we Azmans must stick together.
Yes, thank you.
So of course, it was impossible to say no to Azman, to Coach Azman.
Azman saja, Tan Sri, please.
To Man, because one, we were together in the UM group somewhat.
Yes.
All those years ago.
Yes.
Second, of course, we are fellow Azmans, and third, I think we are both travellers on a journey. I believe banyak common interests.
Yes.
Antaranya is on leadership, I believe, on nation building, which are themes of your podcast, which by the way I do follow on and off. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So glad to be here.
Thank you so much. And Tan Sri, this is the thing, each time we host guests, some, obviously in your case, you're very well known, but even some of those who are lesser known, we follow the same theme, because it's nothing like meeting the person, understanding, what is it about this person that has made them successful. And kebetulan Tan Sri, we are actually at the stage of season 2, closer to Hari Kebangsaan, Hari Merdeka. So we decided to actually have a bit more of an intimate theme. What's the Merdeka in me all about?
Sure.
So the Merdeka, of course, is in many forms and many ways it resonates with individuals. So hopefully today we can hear a lot about what your thoughts are about even your life and perspective, both career as well as personal, that may have been breakthroughs also.
Sure.
Yeah.
Inshallah.
So, maybe just to begin, if I may, what I know of you, Tan Sri, minta maaf lah if it's not 100% accurate, tapi asal usul Tan Sri dilahirkan di Melaka, ya?
Saya lahir di Melaka, 04 IC. And Alhamdulillah, this was in, I think it's okay, my vintage is known, 1961.
1961.
I think it was a good year.
Yes.
And saya lahir di Melaka lah. So both my parents were teachers. My arwah father started as a cikgu di Budak Melaka High School. Asalnya dari kampung Cincin, Jasin, Melaka.
He's originally from Melaka.
Dia memang Melaka. and he met my mum apabila I think they were in the cohort that was selected to go to Kirby in England, dekat Liverpool
Yes.
in the early 50s to become cikgu lah. For at that time I think the national process approaching Merdeka tahun 57 so I think almarhum Tengku Abdul Rahman had already started Merdeka talks, I believe.
Yes.
And therefore, they were preparing this new nation. So, Alhamdulillah, my father was selected from Lekka. I think the cohort was dalam 200 orang, tak silap.
Right.
And my mother daripada Johor lah. Jadi, I guess they were, in the early 20, probably about 2021, tak silap.
Yes.
And must have been an adventure. So daripada Sungai Besi Airport di KL naik BOAC, the airline, pergi ke Heathrow.
Yes.
At that time I think apparently it took them 3 days.
Really kan?
Via Colombo, Karachi dan Cairo. Barulah sampai ke Heathrow. So somewhere bukan antara Anyer dan Jakarta lah, somewhere antara Sungai Besi dengan Heathrow. I think they fell in love.
Oh really? Wow.
What a romantic story.
Actually kan?
And apparently, well, my sister and I subsequently went to this place di Colombo called Mount Lavinia Hotel lah. So I guess that time dia orang stop over, budak-budak ni dapat, so imagine how exciting naik kapal terbang pergi ni kan. But I think it was a great program. The Kirby group sampai hari ni dah, this is, 70 years or whatever it is. And my mum, Alhamdulillah, turned 90 last September.
MasyaAllah, Alhamdulillah.
Di nearby, di Kampung Tengku, S01. My late father passed away relatively young at 57. From a teacher, he became broadcaster, kerja radio television Malaysia lah lama. Mokhtar Daud is known lah for his work on, at that time you kena all-rounder drama punya, macam-macam lah, commentator punya, news punya. And I think one of my love for sports was probably as a little boy I would follow my dad who was a football commentator among other things. Pergi pesta bola
Merdeka and all that.
So anyway, so Alhamdulillah lah, our family, we were not poor, but we were not rich either. I suppose you would say middle class, anak cikgu. But the house was always full of books, publications. The backdrop of the house was always, my late father was in broadcasting. Sama ada radio, BBC World Service, Voice of America, whatever lah, I'm not sure whether so always, this was always the atmosphere of learning. Sedar tak sedar lah. And as anak cikgu, of course, I think I probably could read fairly young because I was being experimented with all the latest pedagogy. So my mom specialised in preschool education, among other things. So Alhamdulillah, and I'm the middle child. Sometimes it shows. Of three. So my elder sister is an architect, Alhamdulillah, and my younger brother is a lawyer, but he's now has been working in human resource.
Yes, doing very well too.
So Alhamdulillah.
So and these are insights that we maybe not all of us are familiar unless those who are close to you. Of course, the Malay college years is very prominent in what we know of you. Are there any particular memories of your formative years, especially which maybe stick with you till today, that that resonate whenever the Malay college era comes to memory? Sure,
of course. As you know, as MCKK boys ni, we like to think the whole world is centered on Kuala Kangsar. It's true, no? It's partly true. But it's at least, as they say, you can take the boy out of Kuala, but you cannot take Kuala out of the boy lah. Itu biasa lah tu. But not just us. I'm sure the strong affiliation everyone has, especially in your formative years. For that reason, I think it's called your alma mater lah. Matters a lot, kan? So for me, Alhamdulillah, 1974 was the year I entered because, that's the year I was 12, 13 years old. Proses pemilihan, I now sit on the board of governors lah. In fact, I've been sitting in it for about 20 years now, dah lama.
Of Malay College?
Malay College. Wow. Because that time, Menteri Pendidikan, Datuk Isyamuddin,
Okay.
Hussein.
Okay.
Syam was my batch actually.
Yes.
Masa Form 1
Yes.
MCKK. So of course MCKK was an honor and a privilege to join. But if I may, my overriding feeling about MCKK is kalau kita ambil dia punya lagu sekolah,
Okay.
antara lirik-lirik dia adalah among other things, keluar membimbing negara, bangga aku rasakan, khidmat ku berikan. So I always say the khidmat must always be more than the bangga and whatever else lah. That's important because that's the whole point.
Yes.
And when I entered in 74, maybe a couple of anecdotes lah. Maybe my parents were abroad actually. Both my parents tengah belajar lah, buat sambung pelajaran,
I see.
masters and whatever else in the UK. So it fell on a family member to help to bring me over to Kuala lah. So that family member happens to be at that time Timbalan Menteri Sukan tak silap, an old boy, Datuk Allahyarham Datuk Mokhtar Hashim. Okay, from Negeri Sembilan. So those of you with memory will know.
Datuk Mokhtar Hashim.
Datuk Mokhtar Hashim Negeri Sembilan.
Negeri Sembilan.
So Uncle Mokhtar basically brought me in because he's an old boy. So he registered me. He changed my house to Idris house, which was his house.
Idris house.
And then he pasang kelambu.
Wow.
Left me there. Blah 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 lah. Fast forward 12 years later, Uncle Mokhtar was not available. Many of you may know that story.
Yes.
It fell upon me to bring his son, who got offered to go in. So my auntie, kami panggil Nggal lah. Nggal, if you're listening to this, thank you.
Masya Allah.
Datin Bahariah. So of course orang Melaka. So kata, Aman, kau bawa anak boy ni. Dia nak pergi Kuala Kangsar. So of course I had to bring the same Mercedes. Stop at the same rest house in Tanjung Malip.
Okay.
Which was very posh to me at that time. Makan the same sandwich.
Okay.
Put that boy ni into Idris house. Change his house. Pasang kelambu and so on lah. Rinse and repeat, right? The nice thing is that the boy became basically head boy of his year.
Wow.
The class of 1990,
Okay.
which is I think a fairly prominent class. This is Tengku Zafrul punya batch. And the boy went on to become the CEO of Telekom Malaysia, Datuk Imri Mokhtar.
So
Imri
so
is
pangkat nephew lah.
He's technically second cousin.
Second cousin. Yeah.
Imri lah.
Small world.
Small world lah, but this in a way reflect the ethos of MCKK lah. It's about service, it's about khidmat, it's about generation, and I think it shapes you.
Yeah.
It shapes you.
Yeah.
And indeed, maybe the second anecdote is bila saya masuk, barang-barang ni ada kan, so yang you punya barang. So I think my mum she's cikgu kan, very organised. So antaranya dia mark taruh marker barang saya, including
label.
yang apa nama ni, yang bros kasut sampai batal sampai hari ni saya simpan.
Iya.
So bros kasut tu tulis A.Mock. A.Mock kan.
Okay.
So kawan-kawan saya nampak, hoi budak ni amok. Terus lekatlah nama.
I see.
Jadi
so that's the origin now.
That is one of the origin.
Okay.
And my parents, you should know, call me Aman.
Okay.
Tapi saya masuk MCKK kena panggil Amok. So antara Aman dengan Amok, mana letak confuse kan. So let's just say I had interesting growing up, yes. But you're right lah, that was certainly a formative period.
Masya Allah. Tan Sri, I hope you're not me asking, can I imagine that you, in your class, you were the one that your classmates would stand by to copy your answers, or
on the contrary, maybe the roles are reversed. No lah. I mean the MCKK, Alhamdulillah, these are brothers for life.
Yeah.
And there was a selection process. Dapat offer. In fact, my late father was offered in the 1940s to go to MCKK. Tapi miskin miskin. One miskin, kedua orang Melaka, dia belajar terpaksa duduk dengan being the eldest. He had to live in Kuala Terengganu with uncle lah, who was a bit better off.
Masya Allah.
Dengan cousin dia Pak Manaf ni. Datuk lah later, Tok Manaf. He did well in his exams. The only thing is you can't go to Kuala Kangsar on a Terengganu ticket and scholarship if you're from Melaka. So dia tak dapat. Dia tak dapat masuk lah, in short. So when my turn came, So I remember my grandmother lecturing us. Tak, kau lu tak boleh pergi lah. Budak Dakman tu pagi dia pergi. Something like that lah. Something like that. Wow. So I think, no, alhamdulillah, I had a good 5.5 years. Yes. I think I was very active on many things. I managed to get through my studies, but frankly, the learnings were not just in the classroom or the exam. Very much the playing fields, the halls, the organizing, the collegiality of living, thinking, working, dreaming, breathing with each other. We just had our 50th reunion actually, January baru ni.
Yes, okay.
60 or 70 of us went out naik Kretapi ke Kuala lah. The trains are a bit faster certainly on time. But anyway, I could go on and on to
but these are interesting insights, because at the end of the day it's personal reflections kan.
I mean, I sometimes reflect that I represented MCKK in 3 things for the school team lah, because competitive.
Yes.
Ni ramai orang hebat-hebat games. So I was able to play rugby, which is prestigious MCK. Although I was not in the first team, not good enough.
Wow.
Tapi dapatlah masuk All Black ni.
Yes.
I also played chess for the school.
Okay.
Second board.
Second board.
And then third, I was a debater. A debater for the for the English debating team. I was the third speaker.
Alright.
The first speaker is our legendary Man Cowboy, if you're listening to this. So Dato' Azman Manaf, Man Cowboy was our legendary, fantastic natural speaker.
Alright.
And the second speaker, Dato' Chevron Mozani.
Chevron,
you know Chevron?
Yes,
you should invite him. Very articulate. So he's the suave, articulate guy. Man is the natural guy. I'm the street fighter. With the ideas though.
Okay. And you got to pick up all the points to...
well, they did too, but my contribution, I think, was mostly that. So, in short, when you do rugby, chess and debate, I gave them my body, mind and soul. Something like that. But, anyway, very fond days, as you can imagine.
I'm sure. Tan Sri, I hope you don't mind me asking, when we talk like this and we reflect, would you say that you were the one who was always who could think out of the box and see things from perspectives that others may not readily see? I mean, sorry to put you on the spot on this particular point.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether always the case, but I think if I were to reflect back, bukan aja the school years, which are formative years, but the years in the UK. So maybe to sambung the journey lah.
Yes, please.
Selepas UK, alhamdulillah dapat peluang as a lembaga elektrik negara lah, scholar. Which is of course very much an engineering organisation till today, tenaga. But somehow at that time Tan Sri Azman was the general manager, the CEO. They had a program for accountants. So 8 of us were selected, including myself and a few other friends.
Okay.
To do ACCA for UK, kan? So that gave me a chance to go abroad. And so during that journey pun memang, if you say out of the box, I'm not sure exactly. Tetapi certainly I don't necessarily follow the conventional path lah. For example, masa di UK, I think accounting is not easy.
Yes.
But alhamdulillah, I got through it eventually. After 4 years from Form 5 is quite fast. Although some others were faster.
Yes.
But I also spent a lot of time absorbing, traveling.
Yes.
Trying to understand other things, because the world is much bigger. And in reflection, this kind of established a trend di mana I think the word sometimes I use, banyak trespassing. Asalkan tak trespassing kan, selalu kalau don't trespass tu yang ada gambar senapang dengar. So even in school lah, so I would brush with trouble. So I think if you have to be curious, my view, to go through our life journey, you have to, tapi adab kena ada. Sometimes orang kata nakal tapi jangan jahat, jahat jangan sekali. So I think there was an element of that lah, if I reflect back throughout then later in my working life pun, perhaps whatever track record I have with my colleagues, we often did things that were perhaps different.
Stretching the boundaries and
stretching or even breaking some boundaries, and why not? Building bridges or breaking through. Why not?
And this anecdote of trespassing, and ultimately that became the theme behind all of your travels, which probably will come back to it in a little while. It's sort of like it was something that maybe from your formative years on the train up and down to Kuala Kangsar, kan? I mean, from what I understand, which we will come back to a bit later, was part and parcel of your life journey, kan?
Yes.
Tan Sri, this is an observation, and even in the lead up to this particular session today, I was very amazed by how you articulately even plan, even for this podcast, let alone some of your writings. And thank you so much for sharing. But I sort of like feel it resonates with our theme, because you've shared something about your leadership journey, and we will project this properly, right?
on your screen.
Yeah, we will. It's obviously your own scribbles maybe in reflection. But what fascinated me, Tan Sri, is that you have mapped out, in a way, the different parts of your life and your career in 7-year cycles. So maybe my question would be around, is there any pivotal points in this journey, maybe 2 or even 3, that you can share with us, maybe from the viewpoint of major breakthroughs, or pivotal points in your career that helped to shape you to the person and leader that eventually you became?
Sure, I'll try.
Okay.
I think what Azman showed just now, which I presume you will somewhere project to your viewers.
Yes.
Is the concept of 7-year life cycles on a journey, and this journey is, I suppose, both a personal punya journey, as well as a professional journey lah.
Okay.
So if probably the best way to start is to explain the origin of this thinking. The setting was about 30, a bit more than 30 years ago lah. It was in the early 90s. So the setting was di Mekoba, the Malay College in building dekat Jalan Sek Putra tu. Bulan puasa. So berbuka, sembahyang maghrib, then makan malam, tarawih, then ada tazkirah sikit. So what they call it, a sharing lah, knowledge sharing. So the topic was, we were young parents, for me at least. Some of my friends were ahead of me, many of them. Was how to raise children, actually. So this was the tazkirah, and our invited guest speaker is a certain Datuk Dr. Fadilah Kamsa.
Oh yes,
so he's a great guy, as you know.
Yes.
I'm sure your viewers will know.
Yes.
A pakar motivasi.
Yes.
And our senior lah, budak college juga. So kita tanya tu, kongsilah ilmu sikit macam mana nak raise children, right? So he is always very, very wise, very entertaining, always anchored on the right nas and sources, right? So he started talking about, dia kata budak-budak ni, the first 7 years, keperluan dia, you kena, sebagai parent, you kena bagi a lot of love, kasih sayang kan, obviously. And this creates a stable ni kan. So that follows. And a lot of science, psychology, research, etc. kan, will support that lah. Then dia kata the next 7 years, umur 7 hingga 14 lebih kurang, is a period di mana you must instill work ethic. Kena disiplin lah.
Yes.
Of course that's logical, because kalau tidak jadi manja lah.
Yes.
Etc. kan. And not a coincidence perhaps, as Muslims we are asked budak-budak kena start sembahyang umur 7 tahun.
Yes.
Some of course earlier, but 7 lah.
7 years.
So that's also quite logical. Then he went on to say 14 to 21 dia kata, you all kena develop a relationship dengan budak semacam kawan tau. So every family will have their own arrangement lah, including mine, perhaps including yours. Ada yang bapa lebih rapat muslimat lah. Budak-budak ni pandai kan, dia pandai arbitrage kan, ada bapa muslimat je. So normal lah tu. So and they're very smart, right? They're very smart. Because dah besar, panjang orang kata, kalau you tak close, tak ada bandwidth, tak ada, you know, the bandwidth frequency tu tak kena, then you will lose them. They will lose, and this is what happens actually, especially now, you know, with you don't know what's happening.
And all,
Then it stopped there because, to be fair to him, this was the topic about raising children, right?
Yes.
Then this somehow had an effect on me. So this is like 30 over years ago. Then over the years, as I became in my professional career, and also planning my own journey, I reflect on this lah, 7-year cycle. Of course, the angka 7 ni pun mungkin ada certain connotation, certain resonance. God knows.
Yes.
Literally God knows. Of course, dalam surah Yusuf, as you know, the sirah of Nabi Yusuf alaihi salam, you know, 7 years of famine, 7 years of feast, etc. Kan?
Yes.
So 7 sounds like a nice number lah, since dia pun ni. So I extrapolate. 21 to 28, for example, is for a lot of people, dia punya first job. Dia baru graduate.
Exactly.
Around this time, I was beginning to be like a little boss lah. So little boss kadang kita sendiri charting our journey. Tapi bila anak buah, people you supervise tak tanya, you would advise, kata, look, you know, don't go for, you know, little bit more gaji. Most important is that this is where you must build a portfolio of work, work ethic, kerja dengan ni, get the right, betul get the right, you know, so sometimes people will go to job yang glamorous, this and that, and then dia macam macam shooting star, dan boom, tak boleh. Or worse, they do, you know, unethical thing. Yang penting during this stage is growth, actually.
Your professional formative years,
growth. You must be able to grow, actually. 21, 28. Kemudian 28, 35 kata, despite as I reflect, because it's competitive, there's a lot of specialization. You kena, by that time, by 35, most people dah ada about 10, 12 years of experience. You got to be good at something. You got to be the go-to person on whatever lah. You punya feel, depending whatever your bidang lah, right? In my case, alhamdulillah, you know, I work LLN, tenaga. Sometimes tough because I serve my bond. I think I'm bersyukur I was able to, you know, honor my bond. In hindsight, perhaps this was training to, kalau kita nak jadi boss GLC later, kena lah tahu macam mana GLC punya culture sedikit sebanyak. And this helped me actually, to be honest. At that time it didn't feel like it sometimes, tapi you know, so by 35, therefore, alhamdulillah, as fate would have it, LLN suddenly got listed, became the largest company on the stock exchange, became globally significant. My area is finance and accounting. So nak tak nak orang cari kita. So I'm the go-to guy. Alhamdulillah. For tenaga. Well, on tenaga, because kita buat investor relation, ada arwah Dato' Azlin dengan dia. Tan Sri Azman was our big boss. And suddenly, you know, the whole world descended, and the markets were booming, right? Early 90s. So hence, you know, suddenly then I discovered there's this thing called CFA. Kita pun kena lah tampung whatever gaps in our learning. So I did CFA. And that launched my career into as an analyst, actually. So then from there, UBS hired me, and then Solomon, etc. lah. So to 35 to 42 is really the period you develop not just your leadership in your area of expertise, but you begin to supervise others. Walaupun the team tu mungkin tak besar. Of course, these are general guidelines. Some people cepat sikit, some people lambat sikit. Doesn't matter lah. It's a framework, actually. So I reflect then at 42. So each 7-year cycle is what we call a chevron. Chevron tu macam ni, dia macam arrow tu kan, chevron. So the 5th chevron takes you to 7 times 5 is 35. 6 is to 42 lah. 42. So happened, I got called to become CEO of Khazanah at 43, actually. And I spent 14 years. I spent 14 years, which is dua chevron lah. So in some ways, kalau coach, I still want to call you coach. Coach Azman, coach kata, tak apa lah, coach kata, the pivotal moment, I pecahkan 3 lah roughly. My journey to date lah. Because now I'm 63. That means it's a 9 chevron.
Exactly.
So the first 6 was really preparation. Sampai umur 42 tahun lah, lebih kurang. Itu termasuk lah lahir, your parents, sekolah, your siblings. pergi ke UK, belajar, travel, hitchhiking, etc. And then my first job, which is tenaga LLN. Along the way, of course, my father passed away. Alhamdulillah, I was able to go to Hajj as a bachelor with my mum.
With your mother,
1990, quite young.
Yes.
And then masuk ni semua. So the first 3 parts lah. The first part, perhaps the years
Leading
before
up to that
lah, for a major, basically pemegang amanah punya role lah. And 14 years of carrying, this rather heavy amanah called Khazanah.
Kan?
But alhamdulillah, these were years of preparation, and then you don't necessarily, you strive and to be the best you can be in your field, which is important.
Yes.
But you don't ask for this thing, but when it comes, you try to do your best, right? And then so that's like 2 chevrons, and then since then, actually, the post period, I mean that is about 6 years lah, which we can cover later lah. So I hope that explains a little bit of the concept of journey.
And actually, I am a strong advocate of planning ahead, anticipating what your future may be like. Lama-lama, ultimately Allah yang menentukan.
Of course.
Tapi at least when you plan, it gives you a sense of preparing, kan?
Sure.
Kan? Masya. In fact, here you refer to your the 7th, 8th, and 9th as your prime time 1. Prime time 2, and of course the stewardship in the last 6 years or so, kan?
Right. So, if I may take up on that. Jadi, of course, the Khazanah years I think are reasonably well documented lah from your readers. So tak payahlah ni unless there's you want to drill down on that.
Okay.
I think on the internet everywhere adalah.
But there will be parts. There will be parts.
Okay, later I'll leave that to you. Then so memang lah I couldn't quite complete 15 years because it's 5 terms of 3 years.
Yes.
I was on my 5th term.
Okay.
Tapi dah memang dah getting ready for succession lah. I had already our board already selected succession planning. Ada 2 deputy CEO, etc. lah. Of course, 2018 was tumultuous year for many things.
Kan?
Government, GLC to call semua kan. But it's okay. I was really on the way out anyway. Of course, my concerns was for both the institution, my staff lah. Inshallah, I did find my way because thankfully in the year 2018-2019, after I left, that means about 6 years ago. Alhamdulillah lah, my old university where I was able to do a master's, Cambridge, came and offered a couple of nice fellowships that I was able to go and pursue some of my I'm a practitioner tapi adalah some academic interests. In particular, I suppose academic interest in the area of finance and how finance relate to society. Because secara ringkas lah, finance is supposed to serve the real economy. The real economy is supposed to support a just and progressive society. Sepatutnya. I think there's a case to be made that relationship ni dah terbalik. Di mana the so-called financialization macam-macam dah ni. So couple of 2-3 years di Cambridge, and then the period, so I was giving talks a little bit. It wasn't that heavy, but it gave me time to think, to catch up on many things, and to travel actually. So one of my travels was something I had dreamed about for a long time lah. Dekat 40 tahun. Finally ada peluang lah.
That was an amazing story.
To take these trains around the world.
Kan?
70, as it turns out, 77 hari, 77 keretapi, satu dunia lah. 22 negara, 54 kota raya, etc. lah.
And we have this documented in this book.
Yes. This was actually when I came back shortly after COVID. So in a way, alhamdulillah, because
just before kan, just
kita
nice
complete
timing.
Just before COVID broke out, and during COVID, my wife actually, my dear wife, she put this together, which was basically it's not a real book per se, it's more like a photo book.
Yeah.
Saya guna Instagram as a travel log, because Instagram boleh tengok gambar, video, and apa benda adalah dia punya narrative sikit-sikit.
But this is the thing, Tan Sri. I minta maaf kan. And thank you for gifting me one lovely copy. And
I gave you 2 because I'm forgetful this year. I forgot to give you.
I'm going to share one with you. Okay. But this is the thing, Tan Sri, minta maaf lah. Maybe it's just me lah. I was reading through a lot of the Instagram postings, reflections, and as I'm reading, I'm like, wow, this is a historical journey, a lot of facts and details, and I'm sure you would have researched a lot of these destinations prior to traveling.
Yes.
But what I'm imagining is that as you're on the trains, you are literally writing your own version of how you see things, how you saw history, the significance of all these destinations, which I don't think many people can document it this way lah.
Yeah, most of all kita syukur alhamdulillah, because
I'm not trying to butter you up, Tan Sri, but
no,
I
I felt very, as I wrote in there somewhere, my overriding feeling was you really have to bersyukur because you are able to view this, ground level. Nak keliling dunia boleh lah. It needs time, it needs some money, it needs this and that, you need help. But for all of that to come together, because this dream actually started almost 40 years before it actually happened, because dari dulu kan masa student etc. But the core reflection man is ni lah, because then you buat research sikit. So for example, the Holy Quran banyak ayat-ayat about travel actually, to go out and see the world. These are among Allah Ta'ala punya signs actually, both the history and the geography. And you will see of course, you're going through so it's a little bit fleeting, tetapi you cannot beat that lah, in the sense that you tengok you duduk going through the train, jumpa orang, makan sini sikit, and so on lah. So alhamdulillah, so hajat tu makbul in that sense.
How many percent, Tan Sri, if I may ask, how many percent of the journey was in a way pre-thought, I'm going to discover this, and how much was I didn't see that?
It was planned. It had to be planned because I mean, I don't know what percentage, because Kretapi ni dia berkait kan. And not all the trains are regular trains. For example, the Trans-Siberian, it doesn't go every day. Maybe I think once or twice a week. And then we splurge on the famous train, the Orion Express lah, kena lah kan. Itu hantar taksido dari Malaysia. I'm not going to lug that around Siberia apa tu. The problem is DHL wasn't working lah kat Italy. So terpaksa, nasib baik lah ada this old tailor kat Venice.
Ada jumpa.
Kena lah nak naik apa benda ni, Orion Express.
And also on the Queen Mary also?
Queen Mary. By that time taksido dah sampai. Queen Mary pula dia punya chef dari Bangi. Dia punya maitre d' daripada Sarawak. So untunglah kita dapat makan roti canai. Alhamdulillah lah, my dear wife joined us. So a lot of it was planned, curated, but you leave some room for you don't plan everything lah, within that. So alhamdulillah. I think if there's any interest, dalam website ada. Since then I've given about 9 or 10 lectures just on this subject. Because di New York, di London, di Oxford, di Dubai, orang nak tahulah somehow. So in a way this is a form of trespassing yang kita cerita tadi kan.
The phrase you use early on is Wanderlust.
Wanderlust, the Malay equivalent tu macam kembara lah. Kembara. Semangat kembara kan, ada lagu M. Nasir kan.
Masya Allah. No, I mean I'm so impressed. And again, sometimes I mean I know you would have planned it, and you had the right people. And
actually, I was about to say it was a rather private trip. My Instagram pun tak ramai. It's a private account. Tetapi then one of the persons I met along the way, memang plan, was to meet old friends. And it's this journalist in New York who writes for Financial Times. Which is rather well known lah. Nama dia Gillian Ted. So then Gillian, before I knew it, she wrote about this thing. Then it went kind of viral. So now this photo book is in its 5th or 6th print lah.
Really?
Because either bagi ataupun ni lah. So
Amazing. Alhamdulillah. Tan Sri, we're going to sort of like take a short break, if you don't mind.
Sure.
What I want to do actually is I don't want to miss the opportunity to still talk about your Khazanah years.
Sure.
So we'll take a short break and then we'll resume after that, and
Sure.
we'll come back to that if you don't mind.
Sure.
Terima kasih
No problem.
banyak. Thank you. Welcome back to the second part of this episode. Alhamdulillah, even just sitting here and listening to Tan Sri's journey is already so perplexing. But Tan Sri, I'd love to still bring us back to those years in Khazanah.
Yep.
Because to me, I personally also was among the team that was serving under your leadership at that time. And I do also note that in your leadership journey, you mentioned that you were about 42, 43 when you assumed 43 kan? So Tan Sri, can I just understand from the perspective at that time? Okay, so you were with Solomon's, and then you had established Bina Fakir as a boutique consulting firm.
Yep.
What was it like? I mean, you were suddenly handpicked to helm Khazanah. Can you tell us a bit of a story about, for example, how much lead time are you given? What actually transpires when those nominations come up for such leadership positions?
Okay, itulah. I was appointed as CEO Khazanah on 1st June 2004. So 20 tahun dah pun
Kan?
And it turned out I served for 14 years and a bit more lah, lebih kurang. Jadi the lead up to 04, I think it was around the year 2002, 2002. So about 2.5 years, we had this boutique company, the advisory called Bina Fakir. And this was, I co-founded it with my partner, Saudara Danny Yusof, Rashdan Yusof, who's now the Energy Commission Chairman. Danny. Then later a third partner came in, which was Dato Zainal Syari.
Yes.
So Zainal I've known for quite a while because he was my auditor dekat apa nama ni LLN tenaga lah, more tenaga than LLN. So our intent was to set up this boutique consultancy, which was small, naturally it's boutique, but it had big dreams lah, to be honest. We wanted to be entrepreneurs, and our field was finance, advisory, and we were licensed by the SC lah, as an investment advisor. And it turned out that this was the years just after Cambridge. So I think I may have mentioned I left LLN Tenaga in 1994 thereabouts. After serving more than 10 years, and I joined UBS, and this was the go-go years of the market. Alhamdulillah. I mean, if you're relatively young in finance, this is one of your dream jobs, to be an analyst, because it was exciting, the money was good, you get to travel the world, you're doing intellectually interesting stuff. 94 and 5. So, boom. And then bust because of the 98 crisis. Bila 98 crisis pula, in a way, and this is perhaps a lesson that, you can learn a lot during good times. Chances are you can learn even more when times are not so good. So the 98, 99, 2000 years, this coincided with, I had moved with my partner and my boss and then my partner, Madam Yo Kaping. We established Solomon Smith Barney Malaysia. Wow. And we were appointed as the financial advisors to the government of Malaysia. At a time when the government took, at that time under Dr. Mahathir, in fact Dr. Sri Azman was finance minister first. We did something out of the box, which was the selective capital controls, 98. So for Solomon to be the financial advisors at that time was also a very pivotal period. You learn a hell of a lot.
I can imagine.
And I was the bridge between the markets, government, IMF, World Bank pun ada, they're skirting around somewhere kan, macam-macam orang ada lah. And this was an amazing period because, and while the business slowed down on the equity side though, the business picked up on the fixed income side. For example, we were trading, distressed debt, macam-macam lah. But for me, on a professional and even a personal level, I was hitting my late 30s, And the feeling, if I can summarize in one sentence, the curiosity and the urge was to answer this one question: there is more to life than just finance and accounting. Apakah yang lain ni for myself, for my community, and for that matter my nation? Because I was watching this and experiencing this
first hand.
So Alhamdulillah, around about the year 99-2000, I took a decision and informed my bosses in Solomon, even 1 year ahead, that's it, I'm gonna retire and I'm gonna apply to go and study and do my masters. That also means giving up, I would say, a much in demand, lucrative job as head of research at Solomon in that time. But I already decided, I kata cukup lah, I got to find a new curve. So apart from cycles, the idea that as we go on our journey, we must constantly try our best to do the best that we can be, to fulfill whatever potential or whatever gifts Allah Ta'ala has given us. So I wanted to go, and Alhamdulillah, Cambridge University accepted my application. And I came in as a rather elderly master student. I turned 40 di Cambridge, which is positively ancient for Cambridge, for Nila. But later, Alhamdulillah, I came back, worked with my supervisor. And by the way, my supervisor became very famous. He's Dr. Hajun Cheng, famous writer.
Yes.
Till today, we are friends. And in fact, he invited me back as a fellow A Center. I'm still with him dekat one of the universities, the University of London, the US. So, you put all that together, really, my search was really about hopefully the ilmu, of course to better myself and my family, but it needed to veer off that path lah. Because kita pasang niat nak dapatkan ilmu. And as it turns out, what I did on development economics, etc., was perfect for a job that was going to come later that I did not know then, which was Khazanah. Khazanah is at the intersection between the state and the markets. Later we went on to define kita orang punya tagline in the 14 years was building through value which defines value, true value too, with three things. We have to make money. We are an investment house, so financial value. Yang kedua though, being a sovereign fund, just making money alone is not enough. Of course, it's required. You have to also think whatever you do, invest. We have a duty to create good economic and developmental outcomes. For example, create jobs, technology transfer, get market share, markets like in the region. How do we build bridges into Malaysia, bring in investment, co-investment, benda-benda macam ni. Kalau pure investment, how dia tak kira doesn't matter. So for example, we went on, not easy, supported companies like Cerita today. There's a semiconductor boom sebagai contoh. I'm not claiming that's the only reason, but that was an important part. And on
staying the journey pula tu,
staying the journey, the transformation program dan lain-lain. So a lot of that I can trace back to the time by the banks of the River Cam at my college in Darwin, which later I came back as a by fellow. I'm still in touch with them. But also by the banks of the River Klang, which was Bina Fikir punya office dekat Masjid Jami' tu. So while our little firm, I think we had big dreams.
I'm sure.
We had big dreams. And being little also means, one, you have to pay the bills. Two, whatever project you take on, project lain tak boleh buat tu. So you have to also be quite selective. Of course, we did the MAS restructuring 1.0, which wasn't easy because this was companies coming out of the Asian crisis. That was a financial restructuring. Ramai orang kata it was not successful, but it was successful as a financial restructuring. Operational, of course, required later lah. Second was we did the public transport system dekat what became Rapid KL, and all this working with Tan Sri No.
I see.
And Tan Sri was the economic advisor to Tun Mahathir. So very pivotal post. All the corporate stuff basically under Tan Sri, and banyak restructuring work around this time. So Renong, MRCB, MAS, Celcom, you name it lah, macam-macam. So over the years, and the story is actually best told by your former guest, my former boss, Tan Sri No lah. So Tan Sri kata, well, I've offered Azman many jobs. I don't really want to I mean for to be discreet about it. Tapi dia kata Tan Sri will tell the story lah often in various settings. Well, I put him on a plane. We went to Washington DC. For the IMF World Bank spring meeting. Saya pergi je lah. Economic Advisor pergi kan. Not knowing that it's a bit odd lah because not a government servant. So usually yang pergi MOF dengan Bank Negara lah. So then Tan Sri kata somewhere over the Atlantic at 30,000 feet, I told him you either accept this job or you got to jump off the plane. So
and knowing Tan Sri no style, I'm not surprised.
And this he actually said that. He actually said that. I remember distinctly.
Wow.
So so somewhere over the North Atlantic, this kind of the question was popped. So as it turns out, saya accept lah. In hindsight, at 43, frankly, a little bit young for that post. Very major post. But it was also partly a reflection, one generation of corporate leaders affected by the crisis. Sayang lah. But anyway, dah ni, then you try your best. And then, so those were the circumstances of how I landed with the job lah.
No, I mean, and it's amazing, yes. And of course, Tan Sri, when he spoke to us, even behind the scenes, he talked about the leaders that he handpicked in those days. Of course, he's got it, even he's authored books on it.
Of course, the endorsement of Dr. Mahathir, right? As a Prime Minister.
But Tan Sri, there are a lot of young leaders out there, who assume these important positions. In reflection, what were maybe the top two thoughts that came to your mind at the point of being asked, accepting, and then I'm going to take on this role? What did you as a leader first think about?
Well, again, I can't totally place what I actually felt that time. I think I know roughly, but I guess this body of thinking kind of grew over the years lah. So I would define, if there is one word yang nak kena cuba faham and hayati with respect to something like Khazanah, is amanah lah. You kena treat this as, of course, amanah, right?
Real amanah.
Amanah ni, major word, right? So I also reflect that in my exit, actually, in 2018, I think I wrote a farewell letter. So some of your audience may have, is somewhere in the internet lah. Somehow ramai orang baca dan ingat. So dalam 5 pages, but I wanted to thank my staff, which I was very grateful for lah. They were very, supportive, and they were certainly part of the whole effort. But I also wanted to record lah what I thought we did. Alhamdulillah, we were those 3 things, i.e. make money, the financial value, the economic value, strategic value, and third, actually societal value. So benda-benda macam CSR kita institutionalize into Yayasan Hasanah, whatever we did on scholarships, on Think City, on the research institute, and so on. But then dalam tu macam-macam lah, kita quote this and that. The one, if I may, ayat Quran yang was mentioned was also this ayat Quran that we repeatedly as a group. Khazanah ni ialah kita orang sibuk, tapi once a year ni ada macam usrah during bulan Ramadan. Of course the senior leadership Muslim, but also sometimes our non-Muslim colleagues pun sometimes join in on the sides, which is Suratun Nisa ayat 58, if I may. I kept on repeating this.
Please.
Because Suratun Nisa ayat 58, if you look, it talks about Allah Ta'ala instruct us to render the amanah kepada yang ahli. So berikan amanah tu pada yang ahli. Siapa yang ahli ni nak kena kupas lagi. And the one yang pemegang amanah ni pula, tugas dia is to berlaku adil actually. You have to establish justice. So amanah, ahli, adil. This is the core of the work. So this is the one ayat somehow, in my farewell letter, it's maybe instructive that this is the one ayat I used to quote. I quoted, I kata, guys, This is our mission. Don't forget this. So for me, for example, accepting the post, and kalau Tan Sri no cerita, I also said no to a few other things beforehand because honestly, I did not think I was the ahli.
Yeah.
So my view is you should not take a post that you don't think you're the right fit. It doesn't mean you're no good.
Okay.
Sometimes it's a fit,
Yeah, it's a
or
fit.
someone else is a better fit. And by the same token, for all leaders, you cannot do everything alone. Like one key skill, man, as you know, is to realize the leadership in people.
Yes.
Sama ada yang dah sedia ada ataupun yang boleh. I mean, this is what you do as a coach.
Yeah.
Yang mana dia boleh aspire
Yes.
to.
Yes.
That's very important because once you're there, it's about assigning the right person to the right job at the right time and so on, right? It's very key.
Yeah.
What it also means is that person dia kena prepare lah. Dia kena perlengkapkan mana-mana area yang you know that they have to improve. Kan? Jadi so incidentally, this is also the verse in a book, not a very thick book, but a very deep book by the great Sheikh, our Tan Sri Azman wrote this blue book, blue coloured book called On Justice and the Nature of Man. So Syed Nakib dia kupaskan, tafsirkan ayat An-Nisa 58 ni tadi. It's about justice, but also he related it to the nature of man lah, Suratul Mukminin later.
Yes.
So these are very ni, hanya kita bukan ustaz, tapi as practitioners, I really tried to do this with my team. You have to do this together. So if there is one underlying thing I tried to hold on to, is this notion of pegang amanah, stewardship. Bukan leadership. Stewardship is much deeper.
Yes.
And then to be the right ahli, that means you have to strengthen yourself, and then you have to choose the right people in the right position, and berlaku adil. Adil tu berat tu. Because what is adil? Adil is one definition, as she said, Nakid's definition is put the right thing in the right place, right time, etc. Kan? So itu je lah. So that is the kind of overarching thing I hope I was able to do lah, as best as I can.
No, Alhamdulillah. Tan Sri, and in my reflection, when you assumed that role was, you were able to also bring together a real team of talent.
Yes, Alhamdulillah.
And for the rest of us, we were actually quite amazed that all this great talent came together.
I use a bit of hypnotize.
I don't know. They suddenly, and again, Alhamdulillah, because we could see. In fact, I remember,
guys, amazing guys.
And I remember
girls,
even in the Khazanah office in those days, you had this sort of like the Scrabble puzzle where names would be added as and when they joined the team.
But actually, we had that in Bina Fikir. We first had it in Bina Fikir. I don't know, somebody came up with that, and then we kind of brought over the idea.
Of course, when the numbers became in runs to more than 100, then of course it became a bit of a challenge. But still,
it went on
fond
until
memories.
400. Then after that, I don't know. I left already.
yes.
And I'm sure they have something.
Tan Sri, in a lot of your sharings, I mean, you've mentioned it in passing in many parts. If you don't mind, you talked about. I refer to this as altitude. So in a way, again, this is something that we'll share with the viewing audience. You have this triangle, and I mean, with aptitude, attitude, and of course altitude. Yeah.
I mean, of course,
it would it would take us a whole masterclass.
Yeah, my children laugh at me on this. Pa, we've heard this before.
Okay, but I just want to understand from the angle of when you reach that level where it's referred to as altitude. In other words, your stewardship, you're leading large responsibilities, kan?
Yeah.
And in your own words here, when you get up there, a bigger and often hardest test to manage that power and altitude is there, and managing achievement and success is harder than managing adversity and failures.
Sure.
Can you maybe share some experiences where these sort of anecdotes were real to you?
Sure.
Maybe one or two if you can.
Yeah, I think what Azman mentioned tadi is a particular slide from a slide deck lah. I don't know whether you're going to share, but it's there somewhere. I do get invited on and off quite a bit lah to talk about so-called leadership. Jadi one way is to give a framework.
Okay.
So ada 5 perkara. If you can just show the other triangle, this one lah. Briefly. Because the one yang you show tu is number 2 in the in this 5 thing lah.
Yes.
Why triangle? To be honest, saya ni tak pandai buat PowerPoint slide. This one yang you beli off the shelf tu benda tu. Dia boleh taruh je taruh. So maybe the more appropriate diagram is something else, but that's what I have lah for what it's worth. The more important thing is to remember the 5 things in my view lah.
5 principles.
Which I'm sure there's many ways to cut leadership. In fact, there's a ton of material.
Yeah.
Yang pertama, we've spoken a little bit about journey tadi kan.
Yes.
Yang kedua about development, because I view leadership ni, I don't think there are some natural leaders, natural born leaders. I believe everybody has leadership and can be a leader. Kan ada ayat Quran kata Allah Ta'ala created nothing in vain. What that means is setiap orang ada superpower actually. Pada saya lah. The tragedy sometimes orang sometimes circumstance dia tak ada opportunity, but sometimes after all kata adalah nak kena ni. But this is maybe for your audience and all of us to remind, Allah Ta'ala created kita ni ada reason.
Yes.
Ada superpower. So it's up to us to unlock lah, cari So therefore it's about development and growth. So the 3 A's framework which I'll come back to in a while is how to develop lah. It's a framework for development.
Yes.
As you know, siapa nama some Berkeley professor talk Carol apa nama tu yang growth mindset.
Okay.
Growth mindset important.
Yeah.
You must have a growth mindset constantly. Nabi pesan kalau dah nak ni pun tanam pokok it's about growth, about intergenerations.
Yes.
So that's number 2. Number 3 I think I talk about stewardship. Amanah kita dah cover tadi. Nombor 4 cerita pasal purpose, tak silap
Yes, finding
purpose. Because while you are turbocharged doing all these things, curious lah, uni lah, semua nak buat, kau tahu ke mana kau nak pergi ni? Purpose kena tahu. Sometimes, not all, I think sometimes orang buat bagus tapi dia go to the wrong direction. Pun boleh kan? Possible, right? Sometimes purpose ada tapi application tak ada pun tak boleh. Then the last one, I think I talk about balance. Which maybe we can cover a bit later. So back to growth and development. So this chart is a framework. In fact, some came about later while in my Khazanah here. Sometimes Yayasan Khazanah panggil lah. In fact, I think that's probably the first time I wrote this to talk to yang dapat scholarship ni nak pergi overseas kan. So bagi dia punya pep talk before they go. So somehow I drew this triangle with these 3 A's lah konon. So basically because dia orang, I said okay, first you must have the right aptitude lah, the fact that you all dapat scholarship kan? You must have some lah. Now you must go and get some more, get your degree, pumpang ni. Tapi remember bila you habis tu nanti, you start kerja, your aptitude, and many of them, and many yang would join Khazanah, hebat-hebat lah, CV, belajar apa semua ni. But itu baru entry
Yes.
How far you go up on your career, in your life even, I think aptitude tu kira minimum lah, entry level sometimes along the way kita kena tampung lagi lah.
Yes.
Itu yang I buat, ialah CFA lah, pergi Cambridge lah, pergi UIA. Saya buat belajar Islamic Studies
That's right.
because I feel this part I needed to know more. And then it's really your attitude is how far you will go up, quote unquote up, whatever that means.
Yes.
You know this, right? You've seen so many of this. Orang yang pandai-pandai tapi dia pandai tapi kurang bijak lah.
Yes.
Ada beza. So how far you go up is this attitude. That's why sometimes they say, oh, ni attitude problem. Attitude problem. So sometimes lah, this fellow can perform, deliver this and that, tapi pusing belakang, oh my god, macam war zone Dia punya collateral damage banyak, tak boleh. So teamwork, EQ, benda-benda macam ni.
Yes.
Ikhlas, benda macam ni. Sometimes orang banyak attitude, not necessarily ada attitude. Frankly, in certain battles I will take every time in my team the one yang good, yang attitude ni lebih penting daripada attitude. Because you know why? Attitude banyak you boleh list. You can get consultant, you can get macam lah. This one now with internet, AI, whatever, this part senang cari. Boleh cari lah. However, So the triangle in this case may be applicable when you reach the so-called top, quote unquote.
Altitude.
So spoiler alert, top ni kadang dia a bit overrated.
Kan? And it's relative.
So it's relative. And sometimes people talk about second mountains, third mountains, whatever. But it's important because kita ni memang lah, kita as a species we aspire to go higher, better, stronger, faster. Normal lah kan. That achievement drive is normal. In fact, it's good. Kena harness. But often when people reach the so-called top, the altitude problem can become a bigger problem.
Kan?
So my observation, perhaps experience even, is dia antara adversity dengan achievement lah. So both you got to manage, right? So adversity ni manusia, I think we don't like it, but we are wired to somehow understand pain and adversity and that resilience. Bukan senang, tapi insyaAllah people get through. People get through. Many people get through. But many are not prepared for the challenges of achievement and so-called success.
Kan?
So apa ubat dia? Ada ubat. Ada ubat because first you take famous poem Kipling wrote Kipling in his poem If, kan ada line, I cannot remember the whole poem. Kan ada line dia kata, when you treat both triumph and adversity as imposters, dua-dua menipu kan. Triumph pun boleh menipu you, adversity also. So in other words, you kena, I think the word is equanimous lah. Apa? Equanimity. Equanimity tu nama bot orang kan.
Ada, I'm sure ada.
The word equanimity tu. Equanimity means you tak usah excited sangat. Kalau berjaya, tak usah sombong, tak usah apa semua. But bila down tu, tak usah depressed sangat. Sikit-sikit boleh lah, kita human kan. Then when you read Imam Al-Ghazali, for example, Al-Ghazali will say dalam Ihya and all these things, hidup ni antara dua lah. You either sabar or you syukur.
Kan.
So when you're down, sabar lah. Sabar is not passive. Sabar means you work hard, you try apa semua ni. Sabar. Sabar kan.
To strive.
Kan surah Wal-Asri kan, sabar kan. Tapi the other part is really about syukur. So kitab syukur ni is harder lah in a way. Apakah syukur? Among the kesyukuran is you contribute back. You perbersihkan niat, ikhlas, benda macam ni lah. And very hard for a lot of us. Kadang-kadang lupa lupa lalai. So people, you surround yourself with your team, and then you try to put in practices, because a leader, a so-called leader at the top, if they are not in touch with what's happening on the ground, ini usually recipe for literally being out of touch and losing your way lah. So banyak lah. So kalau French Revolution, they talk about let them eat cake. Supposedly Antoinette cakap kan, the let them eat cake moment. So di Khazanah, we instituted a process. In my 14 years, we did 7 times we did, called Kembara Kretapi, which is interesting. Okay, the process is basically all of us, the senior, the executive level, that's about half the firm, 250 orang, starting with me, kena keluar for 1 working week, using public transport sahaja, incognito. So I have to be little bit incognito. Go around the country for 1 week lah. 1 week can be 5 days ke 7 days. I leave it to them. Under 5 macam 5-6 tema lah, themes. For example, mystery shopper GLC. So I would turn up at GLC, pakai ni, check macam mana counter service kat sini. Because kalau saya pergi as CEO Khazanah, semua orang ready kan. I'm not saying ni lah, but people want to be hormat and nice, right? And this was a wonderful experience on both sides, I think. Some people got promotion because of my visits. Nobody got sacked lah. Kalau tak betul lah, I always blame the boss first. I kata, korang ni ajar dia skrip ni tak betul ni. Oi, panggil lah, I will name who lah. Kata, kau punya skrip ni budak-budak ada tak kerti kan. And then I would say, oi, bagus ni, this one, she really helped me kan. I nak minta New Zealand dollar, I know memang tak ada. She send me to Raja Laut lah punya branch apa semua, and so on, right? And we would summarize everything. So there's about 30-35 teams. The equivalent of one, pretty highly qualified Khazanah person for every day for the whole year.
Actually, kan?
Roaming around. And we summarize everything, bagi kat our board, checked by the Prime Minister. So I would show, sir, I'm sure they brief you, but this is exactly how they're smuggling diesel dekat Kuala Kedah.
Wow.
So kita masuk, pergi tengok check macam mana kat laut apa semua. And sir, this is how they're cloning our fisherman boats dekat Besut, for example. Then PM kata, tak tahulah. But you know what? It's very cathartic. In a way, I also don't know where that was heading, but it was a way. Sometimes I call up my guys and say, hey, oi, korang ni, you're gallivanting around the world, and me also lah, pergi all this financial center lah kerja kami. Have you been to, I don't know, Kuala Lipis, Kuala Nerang, and so on lah. Aku pun tak pernah pergi. So but it was good. It was good, and it's documented by the way. There was a book somewhere.
I remember those actually. Yeah, I was not involved directly, but I remember some of those stories.
And of course, we are inspired by tales of course, Sultan Aliuddin Riwayat Shah would do that. Incognito kan? Dia Sultan lah. Or Saidina Omar.
Yeah, Saidina Omar was,
Ibn Khattab kan? Famous story.
Yes.
And others, other leaders. So in other words, up there, one of the ubat is you can somehow find ways and means to be in touch with reality.
Yeah.
Another related anecdote.
Please.
Di Nepal, that time saya chairman Axiata kan. So dengan Tan Sri Jamal, we went and dinner tu, the speaker dia orang jemput, dia ni anak Sherpa Tenzing, Sherpa Tenzing ni yang naik Everest. Dia anak tu. So this Sherpa Tenzing was with this New Zealand guy, Edmund Hillary, yang dapat banyak kredit Edmund Hillary tapi Sherpa Tenzing ni agaknya bapak-bapak dia dah pergi banyak kali kot. So anyway, so what happened is the sun had gone up 4-5 times or something. So he said something I thought was quite profound. Dia kata, the most accidents on Everest happen not on the way up, while they're on top and on the way down. I kata, wow. I said, why? Is that because of physical exhaustion? Kata, that's only part of the story. Memanglah penat
Yes.
But because of euphoria, dia lupa daratan. Literally lupa daratan. So this is actually
They reach the pinnacle.
So kalau main bola, they say you lose, you're most vulnerable after you score a goal. Because you dah gairah, you ingat the terror.
Yes.
And the so-called fall before the fall before hubris before the fall and all that. So that's a reminder, because if you so-called get there, whatever that means, first of all, what is there is relative, as you said. How do you know that that's it? Maybe you are meant to do more. Tak tahu, you tak pergi cari. My view is leadership ni jangan cari pada saya lah. Unless of course you're the only doctor in the house, there's blood on the street, then you kena volunteer. Jangan lah, tak boleh. That's not right either lah kan. Faham lah kan. So anyway, that's the thoughts on how to grow and develop.
Tan Sri, as I'm listening to you, and part of this I've heard, but each time I hear, I rasa macam sayang pula. This podcast of ours is so short to delve deeper into some of these messages. I mean, maybe I'm putting on the spot here, but I'd love to see maybe in future we could have other opportunities to still have you, and maybe we can dive deeper into some of these subject matters, and really, these sharings are so valuable. Takut kita we dilute it just by having this one podcast, but we'll talk about it after this again.
Step by step.
Okay, Tan Sri, I just have one point before we get close towards the end of this particular episode ni. Obviously in hindsight there's a lot of memories, and how did you find that balance when you're at the top? Alhamdulillah, rezeki, Tan Sri, Puan Sri, you've got a lovely family and a lot of ways that but can you just tell us, it's your own personal experience, how you went through life at that particular point of, especially your most important years, or still important, but those active years too, and still get that balance. What's your petua?
Sure. Well, I'm also reflecting and trying to improve, because I don't claim to find, because balance is not easy to find. All of us mencarikan balance lah. Balance, mizan, fitrah, these are all about balance. But we, perhaps that's why in my framework tadi tu, nombor 4 dengan nombor 5 tu purpose, kemudian balance. So maybe I'll use that as a frame lah kalau boleh. So first, to define apakah itu balance, you kena tahu apa benda yang you nak balance kan ni. If you think about it, right? When you say balance, because for some people they may have different views of what is important. Actually, kan. So broadly, I tried to define this by trying to think about so-called purpose. Banyak orang cari meaning sekarang. In fact, they talk about purpose apa? A purposeful organisation, a purpose-led life. Benda-benda jenis kan banyak banyak, both in the local international scene, Muslim dan Muslim, semua orang looking for purpose lah, mencari makna dalam perjalanan. So purpose I define, maybe the easiest way I kata, let's reflect on 3 important relationships of us as insan. As insan first, as manusia. Yang pertama is with our creator lah. So I guna perkataan creator. The reason is sometimes I get invited overseas to talk about this, and ramai they don't think they believe in God and so on. So for us, clear, yang Muslim, but also and Christians and others believe in God. But manusia ni memang wired to serve something, including non-belief, by the way. There are those who are rabidly ni kan, tak apa. So the first relationship is with Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala, our creator, and that relationship is best defined as hamba abdi. So I talk about 3K tadi, 3A kan, 3K dengan 3S lah. Yang ni 3K, 3S. So the first K, the first S is as a servant. We are servant of God lah. So you kena faham tu kan. And you cannot go through life, in my view, in my experience, unless this is clear to you. Sure, ada pasang surut kita manusia, normal lah tu. And this part, kalau you tak ada, boleh, you may be able to maju ni kejap for a while, but eventually you tak boleh pada I. So the first one you kena clear. Tapi ini sahaja tak cukup. So the second relationship is antara manusia. So some say this is the vertical relationship, this is the horizontal relationship. Kalau Christian ni cross kan. I have a diagonal also lah kejap lagi. So the second relationship is antara manusia. If the first one is about servant, about being a khadam, the second one is about to be of service. And to khidmat. Khidmat is a key word. And khidmat, service, is situational. I am a boss, I am a subordinate, I am a father, I am a son, I am a brother, I am a friend. So of course, what service means ni kan, so Nabi pun pesan, the best among us is yang paling berfaedah kepada orang lain. So if I reflect back also, even our children daripada kecil, before they orang tidur, we would hug them, of course, when I'm around lah, sometimes not around, oftentimes not around. We would say, of course, dah basuh kaki ke, baca 3 kul, and then say, bila besar nanti tolong orang. But before you nak tolong orang, kena tolong diri sendiri dulu kan, strengthen lah, something like that lah. So certainly the notion, the second relationship, because kita bermasyarakat, what it means. And the third one is actually with what is our relationship with creation. Creation itself is of course the natural world lah, environment apa semua ni. Sustainability is a big topic this day, but more than that lah. For example, my field is in the financial system, which is a creation lah. If those who are in, I don't know, in law, the justice system. So this is really about our vocation. And this one, the relationship, the K is Khalifah actually. The S is steward. Steward. So this is purpose. Then how do you apply this is balance actually. Because, and then kalau you apply this dengan journey tadi, journey you're cutting across time. There are times when yang ni kena lebih, yang ni kena kurang sikit lah. Sebagai contoh, young family, right? Of course, I kena cek makan, support my family, cek rezeki. For me, my dear wife, a word for her. When we first got married, you know, she gave up a very promising career as an architect. She worked for, you know, Dato' Isha Bakri, Allahyarham. And I don't mind saying, you know, I was a poor accountant di I think she was earning more than me. But we decided, okay, after our second child, after Aisyah came, dia jaga budak-budak lah. That means that actually forced me to go out to kena cari, you know, rezeki. Alhamdulillah, kadang rezeki anak, rezeki whatever. So it's at different stages. So that last number 5 punya balance, one approach, having established what is purpose, those 3 notes tadi, so to speak, I tried to reflect along how to balance these 3 to use the metaphor of 3 masjid.
Right.
So the first masjid is the masjid lah, or the temple or church or whatever people believe, which is really you punya devotion and commitment to your way, your deen lah, your religion, your way of life. Because you must have a ethical moral code to guide you along. Sebab kalau tidak, tak dapat balance. But the second masjid is really not a coincidence, right? Orang Melayu kata when you get married, orang kata apa? Bina masjid. Bina masjid. And it is really a masjid. It is sacred. So, Quran kata this is a source of apa? Sakinah, rahmah, mawaddah, right? Tranquility. Rahmah is mercy. Mawaddah is kasih sayang. Love. And it's beautiful.
Exactly, kan?
And the reverse of that is when tak ada, it's terrible, right? It's terrible, hancur. So you kena jaga, defend, grow, groom, fidelity, loyalty, macam-macam lah. And benda tu, that's your, you cannot I mean, of course, that's why Nabi kata nak complete your deen, nak kena kahwin. Not easy lah. I know young people kan susah nak ni. But you must aspire. You must aspire. Of course, banyak lah petu-petu dia orang tua banyak. But the third masjid, I would say, is your amanah, your work. Whatever your work is lah. In my case, it was whatever it is.
Big and small, kan?
Tak kira. Amanah tak kira.
Exactly.
And my own view is that kau jangan cari penyakit, jangan cari yang this one. But you have a responsibility to grow and develop whatever God gave you.
Kan?
You must help people. And then kalau you buat ni semua, if it's meant to happen, it happens. It happens. Macam ni kan, you all buat company, buat apa, buat. It's the best of it. Kena ikhlas, kena apa semua ni. Then hopefully, of course, at the end of that, ni the final, if I make banyak lah lagi. One of the petua I belajar dari one ustaz lah, Ustaz Safwan. Dia kata, dia Indonesian kan, dia kata, manusia tu mencari duit. Bagus tu, kata betul Ustaz. Dia kata duit tu DUIT. DUIT stands for 4 things. Among the success formula suksesnya in no particular order lah. Actually ada order dia. D is doa. U is usaha. I is ikhlas lah. Niat. T is tawakal lah. Actually sequence dia kau kena pasang niat, kena betul lah, ikhlas kan. Which I think people do lah. Generally people do. Usaha as professionals, technocrat, this one we spend a lot of time. Hui, macam-macam spreadsheet lah, PowerPoint lah, Khazanah tu macam-macam. Bagus, very good. But sometimes we forget the doa. You know why? Because whatever pandai macam mana pun, anything you cannot control, right? You just can't control. So it's the doa part kena buat. I so sometimes forget lah, but sometimes kita buat. But if you've done DUI tadi, dia dah buat, apa lagi nak buat?
Serah lah, tawakal.
Ramai forget. That's why in this age of anxiety, ramai orang anxious kan? Anxiety lah, nervous breakdown lah, depressed lah. But you don't know. Even you buat kerja bagai nak rak, you dapat ke tak dapat projek ni, because if you dapat projek ni, maybe that project is bad for you. You don't know.
Exactly.
Kan? Maybe you've avoided something big. Maybe not lah, we don't know kan. Tapi you kena accept that I've done all that. Berserah. And whatever outcome, in the belief that, you know, this is a merciful,
it's meant to be.
God is meant to be. But, you know, move on. You know, learn from that, do something else. So pada saya, that formula, once you that, then tak risau. Tak risau. Masya-Allah.
And Alhamdulillah, Tan Sri, you know, the way that you put it is so easy to understand and reflect upon. I mean, it's actually not rocket science, kan? Tapi sebenarnya we need these reminders. We need to,
and we need to remind each other.
Remind each other. And I think Tan Sri, alhamdulillah, coming from you also, I mean, it means a lot lah to all of us. I mean, even us in this room today.
Thank you.
You know. So Tan Sri, I really appreciate your time and your sharing of wisdom. And I know this is not going to be the last session that we're going to have, but we do need to wrap up.
Yes.
But what I hope you don't mind me asking, and this is also with the request of the team, there's some trivia questions. Okay. And it's just really just to hear another side of you. Yes. And it's meant to be a quick fire response. Okay. So a few questions I'm going to ask. I hope you don't mind.
Yeah, but 3 questions.
Okay. No, not 3 questions. They're nice. They're polite questions.
Okay. Good.
So, who would be maybe 2 former Malay college classmates that came to mind during this session? And maybe don't tell us their names. What are their nicknames, which maybe your class or your batch would know only?
What do you mean by
2? I mean, because we were talking so much, I'm sure when
actually,
two names.
I'm sorry, I have to cop out on that because there's too many again.
Too many, yeah.
Okay. And it would be unfair to just name 2.
Okay.
Honestly, there's too many.
Okay.
Kami punya class of 78 Serpent ni famous ke infamous, we are very very loud, very together, very boisterous.
I'm sure.
Alhamdulillah.
I'm sure. Okay. Well, we heard some of them who were in your debate team at least, and I'm sure that the others they'll be enjoying watching.
Well, Chevron was 1 year different lah, but betul lah MCKK came.
All right. Okay. Maybe this is related to your Kembara Khazanah days. If you could have switched jobs with anyone for a day, what would it have been?
Switch jobs. I don't know. I never thought about it. I somehow I hope I was able to live in the moment.
Okay.
No regrets. No envy. No.
Okay. But out of curiosity.
Sorry, I'm not answering any of your questions.
Out of curiosity, you may wonder, ini kerja ni interesting, or is there anything that would have made you curious about something?
Yeah, I'm always curious about many things. I think there is maybe one area, and not to say unfulfilled, is of course I served 14 years di Khazanah, and then the years after that, tabung haji macam. Banyak public service lah.
Alright.
But there was a time, and that was a reflection of the intent about being an entrepreneur actually. Lain
Okay.
Both are important.
Although Benefique was slightly that way.
Well, Benefique was that. Actually, we had big dreams as entrepreneurs. Of course, I had to stop that in order to join Khazanah. Tak ada blind trust, tak ada apa, that's it. But now, now and then of course COVID, I'm so I think because maybe this is a segue to reflect lah. I think alhamdulillah lah, our nation, as you said, dah nak masuk bulan Merdeka. We will be 67. I really think we have a lot to be grateful for and a lot to look forward to. Of course, we have a lot of issues to also do, but we must be together. Kena banyak. We should be intolerant of benda-benda yang tak baik. Tapi otherwise we should be tolerant of each other and work together, right?
Yes.
But I think apart from being good institutional managers, of part of my journey has been, country needs good entrepreneurs because they create value. This is part of our future, and we must somehow empower that lah. Jadi I think we are at the moment di mana itulah negara the world is at a quite interesting time with all this economic geopolitics punya rivalry. But ASEAN, Malaysia were in a good place in that sense, and antara syarat dia is we must be together. And then apply macam itulah, things like kena ikhlas, kena usaha, and so
sometimes on. Easier said than done, kan?
No, can be done, can be done, especially the younger generation.
Yes,
boleh buat.
True. I know you've travelled the world, you've met many personalities. Is there any one particular personality still, maybe living personality, that you'd love to have dinner with or meet?
Again lah, I somehow don't think about this thing. I don't know why I don't think about this thing.
On the spot. Maybe not Roger Federer lah, but someone like. But you've met even rugby players, kan?
Well, some. Adalah a few. Again lah, I like to think in the moment. And one thing gifted to manusia ni is the ability to read, right?
Yeah.
To read. And when you read, you enter a world of, you get into people's thinking, their minds, their soul. Actually, bila you baca tu, honestly, this is actually the portal into this thing, or movie or whatever, documentary. So I think there's a lot of learning from everywhere, not necessarily. I think there's something to be said today about celebrity culture semua ni. I mean, tak apa, buat je. Boleh.
Tan Sri, you're avoiding my
No.
questions. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
What's the best piece of advice you have received?
Okay. This one I can answer. This one I can answer because people have asked me. In fact, a gentleman from India, quite a famous journalist, so approached me, must have been 7, 8, 10 years ago. So he wrote a book about best advice he ever received. So apparently di Malaysia ada 2 orang je yang dijemput, sebenarnya ada 40 ke 50 orang. Somehow I was one of them. Because we did some work in India. And in fact he came to speak at our Mega Trends thing. And the other is let's just say a former Prime Minister. Who was very kind to give him time lah. So when he came to me, I fikir. After 1 week I came back, 2 words I cakap kat dia. But the 2 words was said differently by 2 people, 2 different people. Of course, 2 people I look up to. The 2 words were be reasonable.
Be reasonable. Yes. Okay.
So the first time was said by my late father, who would tell me, "Man, be reasonable." Kena marah lah tu. As I said tadi, my cerita di MCKK, alhamdulillah lah, I shouldn't be too proud of it. But maybe it says something about learning and about the power of kasih sayang, but also discipline. So once in a while I get into trouble, and the headmaster would cane me. So one particular headmaster was known to be, he was 6'2" or thereabouts, arwah Wan Aziz, Dr. Wan Aziz, who was my father's classmate di Kirby. So so his canings were legendary lah. Budak MCKK, and during that time we all know you really don't want to be caned by arwah Wan Aziz. And so before he came, he would sometimes, not often, not all the time, he would call up my late father, say, "Atta, aku nak votan anak engkau." And my father would ask, apa pula kali ni? So whatever lah, my latest misdemeanor, whatever it. Then my father would ask, berapa kau nak bagi? 2. Tambah 1 lagi, my father.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm glad for that. Actually, not the first time I made this public. I gave a talk, a keynote address at the Invest Malaysia Bursa event. It's about learning. So be reasonable, I remember that. The second one was a gentleman, we talked about Kuala Kedah tadi. He is now in Kuala Kedah. He's 2 years my senior. If you want one MCKK boy I will name now, is nama dia Syed Zainuddin Jugan, if you're listening to this.
Jugan, okay.
Syed Jugan, class of 76. So he was my macam mentor lah in MCKK kan. So you gotta find your way. So Syed Jugan ni legend lah in a way for us lah.
Your senior,
Senior. So he went to study, I think JPA scholar or something like that. Maybe Kementerian Pendidikan. Tak silap saya Sunderland. Came back, but you know what? He opted to go and work with the nelayan di Kuala Kedah.
Wow.
It's amazing. So dia macam secretary for Persatuan Nelayan, always a man of the people. Never entered politics, although all politicians orang nak bertanding, so semua kena kind of get his blessing lah. Something like that lah. So great guy. So in MCKK, he pulled me aside and said, "Remember this. Be reasonable."
Be reasonable.
And this somehow stuck in my head. Reasonable tu macam adil tadi lah. Adil. Okay. So frankly, a lot of the whatever I needed to do later in life, Khazanah tu banyak you kena referee orang ni kan, this kind of thing. So you got to be reasonable. So I think kalau kita berlaku adil, berlaku moderate, berlaku reasonable, I think that's good advice lah. And so somehow that was what I wrote lah when this guy asked me.
Fantastic.
So I don't know whether that applies, but you can see slightly different intonation, right? Where
it's interesting how you that perspective. Okay, maybe one final question before we wrap up.
Yes.
You travel.
Yes.
In your travels, which comes first to mind? The history or the geography?
I don't know. I mean, Macam mana
Because in your writings, it's like so informative. I kind of like wonder, okay, do you go to a place, or you tuju with the first purpose in mind is the history of that destination, or is it
trying to go around the world, right?
Okay.
On trains.
Yes.
So therefore you go where there's trains lah. That's one. Okay lah, fair enough kan. That's obvious. Sorry, I don't mean to be facetious.
Okay.
But for example, I went up Siberia. I could have gone through India into the Stan semua
Okay.
kan. So somehow I went out there partly driven by trains lah. Certain train nak pergi.
Yes.
In this case Trans-Siberia, and then cross the ocean naik Navy. Tetapi cross Pacific ada lah, tapi I couldn't find the right ship as a tempat saya terbang. So I would say it's driven by, of course you want to see places.
So the geography of it.
Geography, but also within that geography there's history.
There's history.
But perhaps more important is what is the purpose of travel lah, apart from curiosity.
Yeah.
You are told go there and go and find and see things, and Allah Ta'ala kata sometimes it's the conclusion was actually the heart and the soul lah, kemanusiaan tu. At the end of the day, that's what you're looking for. And that is the one that actually you probably remember the most. The both friends that you meet, and also some you dah plan, some you kind of
along the way.
Plan and unplanned lah. That human contact is actually probably the most memorable lah.
Yeah,
I would say. Yeah.
Tan Sri, you've got an expert way of philosophically giving me an answer.
Yeah.
Tan Sri, terima kasih banyak-banyak. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. Masya Allah. And it's so great to have you
and
seated with us. Merdeka is coming.
And then Hari Malaysia beyond that.
Yeah. Inshallah. So thank you once again, Tan Sri.
Thank you.
And stay well. Our salams to Puan Sri Mastura and the family. And
thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you again too. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Masya Allah. Thank you so much. This has been such a fulfilling episode, and fine, it's gone over our normal time we allocate, but I'm sure it's been so meaningful for you too. Thank you once again for joining us. Please, take a lot of insights into what we learned today and the sharings from Tan Sri, and hopefully, it's something that you too can also exemplify and share with others. In your own lives respectively. So till our next episode, thank you once again for joining us. Please stay tuned, please continue to support us, and we look forward to seeing you next time around. Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera, have a very good week ahead. Take care now.